And someone on this flight is threatening to kill a passenger unless $150 million is transferred in the next 18 minutes.
Who knows about this?
You and me.
Meet Bill, a troubled and weary man. He's a U.S. Air Marshal and a former NYPD officer, haunted by the loss of his daughter Olivia, who passed away from cancer. In his grief, Bill turns to alcohol to numb the pain. While at the airport smoking area, a man named Tom approaches him, asking for a lighter.
Excuse me, sir. You got a light?
Yeah, sorry.
Tom tries to make small talk, mentioning that he's headed to Amsterdam, but Bill remains distant, scanning the surroundings, already in work mode. Soon after, Bill heads to the airport bathroom, where he runs into Jack, another air marshal. While there, Bill notices a young girl named Becca, who's nervous about boarding the flight. She accidentally drops her toy, and Bill picks it up, watching her leave with a pang of sadness, reminding him of his daughter. Becca is accompanied by Nancy, a friendly flight attendant, who reassures the girl as they head to the plane.
I know it may seem scary, but flying's really quite fun.
Bill later hands Becca her toy back, encouraging her to be brave, and she gains some confidence as she gets on the flight. As the plane prepares for takeoff, Bill settles into his seat. He's initially seated next to a passenger named Zach, but moments later, a woman named Jen politely asks Zach to switch seats so she can have the window seat.
Excuse me, sir. I'm right here. I'm in 3B, and I was just wondering if maybe you would prefer the aisle, or if you don't care, if you would switch with me for the window seat.
Sure, why not?
Zach agrees, and Jen takes her place next to Bill. Nancy, the flight attendant, is joined by Gwen, another member of the cabin crew, and together they work seamlessly to keep everything running smoothly. Meanwhile, Captain David and co-pilot Kyle are doing their final cross-checks in the cockpit. Just as the flight gets underway, Bill receives a message from his superior, assuring him that all is going according to plan. As an air marshal, Bill is trained to stay undercover, blending in as just another passenger. Despite being used to this routine, Bill still finds himself gripped with anxiety during takeoff, tightly holding onto a blue ribbon, a keepsake from his late daughter Olivia.
What's that for? Is that for luck?
Something like that. My daughter gave it to me.
After takeoff, Bill opens up to Jen about his daughter, who was 17 when she passed. Jen tries to avoid further questions by pretending she wants to sleep. Feeling uneasy, Bill heads to the bathroom to smoke, trying to calm himself. When he returns to his seat, Bill receives a text from an unknown number. The sender claims to be on the flight and even mentions Bill smoking in the bathroom. Bill scans the cabin, trying to spot the sender, but sees nothing unusual. Jen watches him closely as he moves around, trying to remain discreet. The mysterious passenger then threatens to kill someone on board in 20 minutes unless $150 million is transferred to a bank account. Bill is skeptical but starts searching for clues. Jack, the other air marshal, follows Bill after he signals him over. Suspicious of Jack, Bill demands his phone, but Jack denies sending the messages. He dismisses Bill's concerns, refusing to believe a killer could operate in such close quarters. Ignoring Jack's doubts, Bill reports the threat to the cockpit. The captain explains that they are too far from land to make an emergency landing and urges Bill to act fast. Bill suggests blocking the network to prevent the hijacker from confirming the bank transfer. Then he asks Nancy to monitor the plane's security cameras while bringing Jen into the loop since he feels he can trust them. Bill hands out markers, instructing them to cross off passengers using their phones as he continues texting the hijacker. Nancy and Jen discreetly mark passengers, hoping to narrow down the suspect. Soon after, Bill receives a call from Marinick, a TSA agent. As Jen grows suspicious of Jack's constant phone use, Bill brushes it off, convinced that Jack isn't involved. However, Marinick overhears their conversation and warns Bill not to jump to conclusions. The hijacker then taunts Bill, bringing up his daughter. Bill, visibly shaken, stays silent, even as his superiors continue pressing him for answers. Moments later, Bill notices Jack heading to the bathroom. Jack tries to explain himself, saying he needs the money, but the situation escalates quickly. Jack then attempts to destroy his phone by wetting it, likely to erase any incriminating evidence. A struggle breaks out between the two, and when Jack reaches for his gun, Bill is forced to shoot him in self-defense. As Bill secures Jack's phone and locks the bathroom door, the hijacker sends another chilling message, congratulating Bill on his first kill. Stunned, Bill realizes he's being framed. The hijacker warns that unless the $150 million is transferred, another passenger will die in 20 minutes. Bill pleads for more time, trying to reset the countdown. When Bill returns to the cockpit, he's shocked to learn from the captain that the bank account the hijacker provided is registered in Bill's name. Now, everyone, including his own employer, suspects him. The TSA orders the captain to confiscate Bill's badge and weapon, and the captain reluctantly complies. Jen confronts Bill after overhearing parts of the conversation and insists on knowing the truth. Together, they attempt to restore Jack's phone, and it becomes clear that someone is using Jack's actions to distract and frame Bill. Bill retrieves Jack's luggage and, using the key from Jack's pocket, opens it to find cocaine. Realizing Jack was likely blackmailed into smuggling drugs, Bill understands that the real mastermind has been playing him all along. When Nancy discovers Jack's body, Bill is forced to admit he killed him, but insists it was in self-defense.
Wait. Calm down. I can explain this.
Seeing how terrified Nancy is, Bill pleads with her to trust him. As time ticks on, Bill uses Jack's badge to randomly check other passengers, trying to find the hijacker. He asks Jen to keep an eye out for anything suspicious. Bill begins to suspect Fahim, who turns out to be a doctor, and then Riley, who introduces himself as a police officer. He also questions Charles, a lawyer. But then, Bill gets a message from the hijacker, telling him to stop the prank. Just as Bill grows more anxious, Tom catches his attention, the same guy who had asked for a lighter earlier. Tom mentioned his destination was Amsterdam, but this flight was heading to London.
Where are you headed? I'm headed to Amsterdam.
Bill confronts him, pulling him into the aisle. At that moment, Marinick calls Bill, accusing him of scaring the passengers and refusing to take responsibility for what's happening. Bill, however, is determined to press Tom for answers. Under pressure, Tom admits that he was paid to keep an eye on Bill, but he can't identify the person who gave him the money. Tom points out a man with glasses, and Bill pulls him aside, only for Tom to backtrack, saying it wasn't him. Tom realizes he doesn't remember seeing the person who hired him on the plane. Bill checks his watch, 49 seconds until the next death. As the tension builds, he draws his gun and scans the cabin. Suddenly, a message from the hijacker hints that the next victim may not be a passenger. Just then, the plane hits turbulence, and Bill stumbles, falling to the ground. When he recovers, he rushes with Nancy to the cockpit, where they find the captain convulsing as Kyle, the co-pilot, tries to help.
Started having chest pains and they just collapsed over the yoke.
Bill quickly calls Fahim to the cockpit. After examining the captain, Fahim suspects poisoning. With time running out, Bill resets his countdown timer and instructs Kyle to keep the cockpit door locked until they land. Meanwhile, Jen informs Bill that Zach, a programmer, might be able to track the hijacker's phone. Zach explains he can send a virus-laden photo to disable the phone's alarm system. Bill hands Zach his phone and warns him that he has less than 8 minutes to pull it off. A little later, Bill makes an announcement, telling the passengers that he is locking the business class cabin and instructing everyone to remain seated. His words are met with protests from anxious passengers. To calm them down, Bill makes a false promise, offering free trips for a year, something he knows isn't real but hopes will ease their worries. Zach soon informs Bill that he's finished hacking and programming the phone. Bill tells the passengers to raise their hands while he sends the virus-laden photo to trace the hijacker. With his revolver drawn, he listens carefully, waiting for the sound of a phone notification. When it chimes, he finds the phone in Charles's pocket. Bill immediately interrogates Charles, convinced that he's the culprit. However, Charles, confused and terrified, insists he doesn't know anything about what's happening. Suddenly, Charles, like the captain earlier, begins to convulse and dies on the spot. Fahim confirms both Charles and the captain's deaths, leaving the situation more dire. Tensions reach a breaking point, and Riley rallies some of the passengers, urging them to attack Bill, believing he's the true threat. Feeling desperate and overwhelmed, Bill retreats to the bathroom to smoke a cigarette, trying to gather his thoughts. While there, he stumbles upon a strange discovery, a small hole leading directly to the cockpit. Inside the sink, Bill finds a tiny tube, which he suspects was used to poison the captain. As he digs deeper, he also finds a pin dose implanted in Charles' body. Bill's investigation leads him to an elderly woman who had used the bathroom earlier. She tells him that Jen had entered the bathroom right after her. Growing suspicious, Bill confronts Jen, demanding to know why she's been sitting so close to him throughout the flight.
Why the window seat?
What? Why the window seat?
Why did you sit next to me?
Jen explains her situation, revealing that she has a heart condition, which the doctors had warned could be fatal post-surgery. Since the flight is long, she chose to sit by the window to avoid any stress. Her explanation is heartfelt and seems genuine, but things take a wild turn when Jen tries to guess the hijacker's password using Bill's phone. To their horror, her attempt triggers the activation of a bomb on board. Meanwhile, the outside world is watching. News articles begin flooding in, labeling Bill as the hijacker, making him public enemy number 1. Bill realizes that the only way the bomb could have made it onto the plane was through Jack, knowing an air marshal like him wouldn't be searched. In a panic, he rushes to the suitcase and discovers the bomb hidden inside the cocaine. But as Bill heads back to the cabin to act, Riley and his team attack, trying to stop him. Despite Riley choking him, Bill manages to warn them about the bomb threat. Just then, Tom intervenes, grabbing Bill's gun and pointing it at Riley and his team, forcing them to release him. After Bill explains the situation, Tom gives him the gun back, showing he's on his side. Meanwhile, 2 fighter jets arrive to escort the plane. Kyle, the co-pilot, is instructed to stay on course until they land. Bill rushes to the cockpit, urging Kyle to lower the plane to 8,000 feet to minimize the blast radius if the bomb detonates. Kyle, hesitant at first since they're still over open water, asks for a bit more time to get closer to Iceland. Back in the cabin, Bill and the passengers examine the pressure bomb. Any attempt to defuse it would trigger an explosion, so Bill comes up with a plan. He instructs the passengers to cover the bomb with heavy luggage to limit its effect and suggests placing it near the back door, as there are no other options. Urgency mounting, Bill begs Kyle to start the descent in 3 minutes, hoping to reduce the risk. Amid the chaos, Becca, terrified, tries to hide, and despite Gwen's comforting efforts, the little girl remains frozen in fear. At the same time, Marinick, still convinced Bill is the hijacker, calls again. He tells Bill that the ransom money has been deposited into his account and demands that he stop whatever he's doing. Bill, frustrated, puts Marinick on speakerphone, hoping the real hijacker is listening. But Marinick still believes Bill is the mastermind behind it all, leaving Bill with no support from his own agency. Bill quickly realizes that the videos circulating online were filmed by one of the passengers. He races over and seizes the phone. Meanwhile, Tom's expression shifts to worry, as one of the videos clearly shows him bumping into Charles, with Charles's phone already in Tom's pocket. Panicking, Tom grabs Riley's gun, holding him captive, and tries to fire, but the weapon is empty. Riley retaliates, hitting Tom, who takes off running. Bill orders the passengers to get down and start searching for Tom. To Jen's shock, Zach suddenly pulls out a magazine, loads Riley's gun, and shoots him. As Bill is distracted, Tom seizes the opportunity to attack, grabbing his gun. Meanwhile, the fighter jets refuse Kyle's request to lower the plane's altitude, leaving the aircraft in the hands of Tom and Zach. It's revealed that they are the masterminds behind the murders and chaos on board. Tom explains that his father died in the 9/11 attacks, and he blames the US for failing to improve security enough to prevent future incidents. Their plan was to frame Bill as a terrorist, tarnishing the Air Marshal Service's reputation to force the government to tighten security laws. Zach, however, wasn't on board with killing everyone. Bill tries to reason with him, urging him to defuse the bomb. But before Zach can act, Tom shoots him to stop him. At that moment, despite orders, Kyle trusts Bill and boldly lowers the plane to 8,000 feet to reduce the bomb's impact. The rapid descent gives Bill the chance to overpower Tom, ultimately killing him in self-defense. Just when it seems like things are under control, Zach, who survived Tom's shot, launches a final attack on Bill. But time is running out. The bomb is about to detonate. Bill quickly retreats as the explosion goes off, destroying one of the plane's engines. Despite the damage, Kyle manages a hard but successful landing. During the chaos, Bill and Jen heroically catch Becca, preventing her from falling out of the plane. As the plane finally touches down and all passengers safely disembark, Marinick admits he misjudged Bill and regrets how he handled the situation. In a touching moment, Becca returns Bill's blue ribbon, telling him she no longer needs it. The film ends with a hint at Bill and Jen's blossoming relationship. Well, that's the end of this recap. Consider subscribing for more stories like this.